Oh, this is going to get fun. Now listen, I started fairly animated, gave you a chance to shout. You cannot say I didn't. So if you sat there waiting for your big opportunity, you should have got up. Amen? Because it may be all the way to the end before you get to shout again. Are you with me? I call it the fatted calf principle because I have never seen, and church people are the worst. Every time God raises somebody up, brings somebody and saves somebody, brings in an exile and starts raising them up in the house of God, you always got some old sister saint or brother saint who is offended that they are doing what they are doing. Taking my place? Oh, it's going to get good. Just hang on here for a minute. I understand nobody ever likes to be replaced. Nobody does. I don't like to be replaced. I don't want to be replaced. But if I'm about kingdom stuff, which is what I'm supposed to do, then instead of being, and man, some people resist change, it is unbelievable. I mean, they will go down with the devil fighting before they, are you with me? Amen? Well, that's my spot, and that's what I do there, and that's what I, and after a while, I just want to say, well, with that kind of attitude, no wonder God's replacing you. See, because here's somebody told me the other day, I don't remember where it came from, but somebody told me the other day, somebody said, well, some people don't like what I say, but I just say what needs to be said. And the first thing that popped in my mind when I hear something like that is, no, that's not really the way that goes. You say what you want to say. You say what you think needs to be said. Are you listening? Because some people cause more trouble than they ever help. You better listen to what I'm saying. Stir things up. You don't fix things from the outside by stirring things up. Are you listening? Oh, here we go. I promise we'll get back to shouting in a minute. Just as soon as I quit meddling, we'll go right back to it, all right? But I'm meddling right now because this is a good message. There's no way ever to see growth, ever, without displacement, without enlarging, without moving people into other. Because listen to me, if a handful took care of it when it started, a handful can't take care of it when it enlarges. Are you listening? I know we don't like it. Amen? We don't like it. Listen, I remember when this angel first came, I mean, what did we have? 4 instruments maybe? I don't know. I mean, not many. You hear this sound that just flows through this building this morning? We went, and trust me, I was there at every step, so I heard it. They're taking my place singing, and I used to play the piano. I used to sing. What do you want, a trophy? When I came, there was 50 people here. God said, I'm not going to leave just 50 people there. I'm going to expand the place. I'm going to enlarge your tent. I'm going to start doing some different things. So as I expand, you're going to need to expand with me. None of us like it. Sometimes we don't like being, that's where I stand. Right there that's where I stand. Somebody actually, we were talking about buying new chairs the other day because we're going to fill this sanctuary up with new seats. Somebody we're making jokes. I'm making jokes about it because I want to tell you something. A Christian will lose their Christianity quicker than anything, especially an old religious one, if you come and sit down in the chair they've been sitting in for 15 years. I'm talking, I ain't going to tell you who they're in this building right now. I point them out, but when I say it, you're going to know I heard you. And we were standing around talking about it, and everybody's like, yeah, I'll buy a chair. Can I put my name on it? Yeah, you can put your name on it as long as you don't mind somebody else sitting in it. And when I made that statement, they looked at it and said, well, I don't want nobody getting my seat. You've heard about the spirit of slap. We've talked about it in here many times. It's like the 11th spiritual gift. I had it before I had any of the other. Amen. And before y'all say, well, preacher, you shouldn't talk like that, every one of you did too. I've met most of you. Amen. And sometimes you just wonder, why do you even stand up and say you want God to do great things when I want him to do great things as long as he'll just stay in this little box? You can do great things, just don't mess up my little apple cart. Amen? Yeah, Pastor, I want the church to grow and expand. We'll fill up the building. I just make sure I get to do everything I always did just like I always did it, and everybody else can get rearranged. Don't rearrange me. Can I tell you something? I've been rearranged a half a dozen times since I came here 13 years ago. Amen? And I didn't particularly like some of it. Do what? That's true. Oh, I'm offended. I just noticed that. Do you see that? I'm the pastor of this church, and I ain't even got a seat to sit at. You think that's funny. I am telling you, there are people, it's amazing how offended people get. Are you listening? Thanks for bringing that to my attention, Mom. We're going to have a committee. We're going to vote. We're going to do something. I'll get this fixed. It sounds funny. You wouldn't believe how many people I deal with like that. Because all they can think about is what I get. What can I have? What are you doing for me? How much are you patting me on the back? You know, if you want to have a party nobody will come to, have a pity party. Oh, I told you, I gave you a chance to shout. You just didn't do it. That is one party nobody's going to attend. Just have yourself a pity party. And if you know anything about your pastor, I'll tell you this, the more you act, the more you try to have yourself a pity party, the less you'll get out of me. Miss Angel said, that's right. It's true. Why? Because I can't stand it. It's about, I'm just telling you, nothing gets my dander up quicker because this is what happens. You are putting yourself in front of the mission of the kingdom of God. This ain't about you. It ain't about me. It's about Jesus Christ. And the second it gets out from outside of that, the moment we start doing something different, the moment we start catering to anybody besides what God is doing in the house, that's when we quit growing. That's when things start falling apart. Are you with me? I know I'm getting this said. I picked Mother's Day to do it too, didn't I? Here we go. So let's think about the fatted calf. Now, I've shared this with you. It's been many years ago. Most of you probably weren't even here. And, oh, don't say everything you think, Todd. But Miss Karen's like, come on. Yeah, move along, move along. The Jewish Semitic tradition is one of being frugal, okay? In fact, the Jewish population has a reputation of being not cheap, but penny misers, you know. Now, listen, I think it's not earned. I think it's almost stingy. I don't think it's stingy. I think it's being frugal. I think they come from a culture where they didn't waste anything. Okay? That's what I believe. But that paying attention to that kind of thing has given them a reputation, so to speak. And but when I was a kid, back when you could still tell ethnic jokes and not be a racist. Oh, somebody shout now. Yeah, because I told as many redneck and hillbilly jokes as I did about anybody else, too. I guess I was racist against my own folks. I did. But here we go. I'm not telling you how to do that. All right, we got children in the buildings. Okay. There used to be all kinds of jokes when it came to the Jewish population about how they would, always buying stuff and trading stuff, that kind of thing. I remember all kinds of them growing up. And what's so funny is that a lot of the Jewish population today, it's not, especially those that have good attitudes about things, they tell some of the best Semitic jokes I've ever heard. In fact, Rabbi Schomburg, does anybody know who he is? He's the rabbi. He's our rabbi, the one that Pastor Hagee teamed with and started Christians United for Israel. If you ever met him, he's the greatest. He's just awesome. He's just awesome. He's the quintessential Jewish rabbi. Cigar smoking, hat wearing, quintessential Jewish rabbi. I love it. He's got a sense of humor that'll just, it's almost dry sense of humor, but it's so funny. He's just a great man. And on this line, one time we were standing, Randy was standing there with him, and it was all this stuff, all this pomp and circumstance, and Rabbi's sitting there in the chair, and we're sitting there, and he just leans over and he says, Randy, you see that watch right there? And Randy's like, yeah. He said, my dear old daddy. He said, that's where that came from. He said, my dear old daddy sold me that watch on his deathbed. So he has that reputation. I don't know. I like people who can laugh at themselves instead of getting so offended. You know, it's just funny. But and I love that kind of human being. And they have that reputation, but it comes from the reality that their tradition, their Semitic tradition, was that you didn't waste anything. You wasted no part of the sacrifice. You wasted no part of the animal. You wasted nothing. Okay? So for a father to kill a fatted calf for a family reunion would make no sense at all. Because his family couldn't eat an entire calf. Couldn't do it. You look in, I didn't come up, I didn't just make this up. You look in the history, that's not the way that, when family dinners happened, or family barbecues, whatever you want to call them, they killed a lamb. Because a lamb's small enough, it'd feed the whole family. You'd have a little bit of leftover. You could do something with it, and everything's good. But in the days with no refrigeration, it was hard to keep meat like that, especially in a desert climate. So for the parable to say, when the father sees the prodigal coming home, go out and kill a fatted calf, if you understand what's going on, then it makes sense why the ones that stayed home got so upset. And here he goes, throwing a fit. You with me? What are you doing? Don't you know he's the one that went? Dad, he took everything and went and blowed it. He's out living life, living life like a golden. He's renting yachts, paying people for massages. Somebody say, I feel the Holy Ghost. Having people do stuff for him that he used to have to do himself, and he spends all of his money. All of it. And then he starts looking around at all these people that used to be around him, that he's been paying their bills for all this time, and they're gone. Because now I've been helping you. That is kind of the way that works, isn't it? See, they've moved on to somebody else with some money. Let's not get into that message. Let's just keep moving on. It's amazing how people run with you as long as you're hot, ain't it? I mean, if you are on top, they will stick with you. Second things start going just a little bit awry, the next thing you know. Jim Baker told me one time, somebody told him, said, boy, I tell you what, you sure lost a lot of friends in that ordeal, didn't you? He said, no, sir. I didn't lose one. I just found out who they were. Amen? Are you with me? So now he's got nothing, and he figures out Dad was right all along. It's amazing how that happens too, isn't it? The older I get, the smarter my parents get. I was wanting to say that when you weren't here, Mom, but it's true. Amen? So here he's headed home, and the other son's like, you didn't do that for me. I've been here. I'm the one been helping. I've stuck with you. Been out there feeding them cows, herding the goats. He's out partying his life away. And you're going to kill the fat. Now, look, you never give me nothing like that. Never had no party for me. Uncle Buck's barbecue done broke out in the backyard. And all you can do is go get a ring and a robe. Are you really going to do this? Doesn't he deserve punishment? Shouldn't he have to pay for what he's done? Well, I don't know about you, but I think eating with the hogs was probably a little bit of reaping what you sowed. What is it about Christian people that feel like somehow they're the ones that's got to pass judgment on people who are trying to get free? The reason the dad killed a fatted calf is because it wasn't a family barbecue. You with me? He killed a fatted calf because he's inviting a bunch of people. He wasn't just letting the family know. He's letting the town know. Are you listening? Everybody that said when he left, he'll never amount to anything, I want you to come and see my son's home. Everybody that ever said, because of the way they're living or what they're doing, they're never going to be worth anything, I want you to come and see what God has done. Amen? It's amazing to me, church, how many people will look in judgment at people because of what they've done or the way they're living or whatever they're going through, and all they can do is see where they are now. But God never looks at it like that. He doesn't see where they are now. He sees what he's going to make out of them. And this father said, you know what? You were wrong about him. Yeah, you may have been right. He's acting like a fool, but you were wrong about where he's headed. Why? Because I'm his daddy. I'm the one that raised him, and that's the way your father is. That's why your Bible says raise up or train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's older he won't depart. Why? Because if daddy is his daddy, if you put enough of the word in them, when they raise up, when they get away from it, they'll start realizing, hey, things were better back at dad's house. Hey, I don't like slopping with the hogs here. I want to go back to daddy's house and have a party with dad's bunch, because I know at least there they're never going to leave me. I know at least there they'll always be with me. I know at least there someone who calls me a friend is really my friend. Fatted calf. So when we start celebrating because people who left come back, and we start letting God do what God does in their lives, don't none of you start griping about what God is doing. Man, I get it, guys. I really understand it. I get it. In the preacher world, I can't tell you how many times I've thought about, Lord, I've been at this a long time. And God raised up somebody barely been preaching 2 years, put them on a platform that I would love to go preach at. And you have to be careful. Hadn't I been loyal? It's not the point. It isn't the point. So celebrate every person. We're going to kill the fatted calf for every person, no matter how wrong they were, no matter how far out they got, no matter how lost they were. We are going to celebrate it when God brings them back and makes their life right. All right, I told you I had 2 points, and well, I didn't wind my watch, Sister Angel. It's 3 o'clock. Time flew by, didn't it? This point will be shorter, I'm sure of it. Not if I can't find it. Really? Touch ID. I said touch ID. Really? Got any oil? I'm going to anoint this thing in a minute. Luke 7, verse 4. I'm sorry, Luke 7, verse 11. You don't have to stand. I'll read it quickly. I know the time's getting late. I want you, listen, I don't normally even worry about time, but this is a celebration day, and I do want you to spend time with Mom. And I know some of you have driven a long way. Some of you have to go back home tonight. So Luke 7, verse 11. And it came to pass the day after that he went into a city called Nain. Many of his disciples went with him, and much people. Now when he came nigh to the gate of the city, behold, there was a dead man carried out, and the only son of his mother. And she was a widow, and much people of the city was with her. Pay attention to that. She had a crowd with her. And when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her and said unto her, Weep not. Really? You're a widow and you just lost your only son? In that culture, no way to make a living. You either start begging or you become a prostitute. No family. There's no Social Security, no food stamps, no nothing. She's burying her only son, and Jesus says, Weep not. Don't weep. Don't cry. The King James says, Weep not. The real language actually doesn't say exactly like that, and it is a distinction with a difference. It actually says, Stop crying. Not, don't cry. Of course you're going to cry. Who wouldn't? I can't think of anything that would hurt worse than that. Jesus doesn't say, don't cry. He says, stop crying. Why? Because help is here. It's okay. It's okay that you've been grieving. But I'm here now. I told you a little while ago, if you're going to pray, stop worrying. If you're going to worry, just don't pray. So Jesus says, I'm here now, stop crying. And when the Lord saw her, had compassion on her, and said unto her, Weep not, stop crying. And he came and touched the bear, and they that bare him stood still. And he said, Young man, I say unto thee, arise. And he that was dead sat up and began to speak. This last line is the best line for a mother on planet Earth. And Jesus, and he delivered him to his mother. Man, that's a good message. It's a message on its own. It's not really a point, it's a message. Something I could preach on for 45 minutes. What you give to Jesus, he'll give back to you. What dead thing you give to Jesus, he'll hand you back. Resurrected. Amen? And I just want to make these couple points and I'm done. You notice she had a crowd, and the Bible says Jesus had a crowd. That's what it says. Jesus' crowd met her crowd. Crowd that mourns, crowd with hope. I don't know which crowd you want to be a part of, but I'm just telling you, I'm going to get on Jesus. Jump on his bandwagon. Amen? Now here we're a little bit back to this pity party thing a little bit, because he tells her, stop crying. Now that help is here, stop it. You've mourned, but you have no reason to mourn now, because I'm here. Man, church, if we could get this. How many times have we laid something at an altar and got right back up worrying about the same thing? Stay up half the night and pray and get victory just to stay up half the next night over the same thing. Think about it. And we'll usually make it pretty spiritual. You know, the Lord woke me up and I... Man, you ain't getting no sleep. I do believe God wakes us up. I do for specific things. I just don't believe he wakes us up for the same problem over and over and over and over again. That ain't God. Are you listening? That's the devil messing with you. If you can't get victory over it, that ain't God. Do some things require more prayer? Of course they do. Yeah. Some things require more fasting? Of course it does. Absolutely. But there comes a time where you're going to have to give it to Jesus. Just give it to Him. At what point in your prayer life, at what point in the specific prayer about something you're praying about, where in that process do you say, I've said this enough, I believe it. I've asked, now I believe. Because that's what Jesus is requiring of her here. If you will stop crying, I'll take this, resurrect it, and give it back to you. Let me say this, and I'm going to close this. If you have loved ones, or children, whatever, don't ever stop prophesying over them. Don't ever stop that. Don't ever stop saying, my kids are saved, they're filled with the Spirit, they're healed, or whatever it is. Don't ever stop that. That's different. Speaking the word is different than worrying all night and toil. Are you with me? Okay? Don't ever stop prophesying over all your family. Do it. It matters. I'm living proof. It matters. Okay? But at some point, you have to get to that place where you stop crying and you start trusting. That's in His hands. Isn't that powerful? In a few sentences, the woman goes from no hope at all to being restored everything. All because she stopped crying. She stopped worrying and let Jesus do what He does. Give them to God. Your kids are saved. Give them to God.
If you're in the Branson, Missouri or Eureka Springs, Arkansas area, Pastor Todd, the staff, and the congregation at Harvest Assembly want to invite you out to our services. For more information on service times and directions to our house of worship, please log on to our website at www.harvestassemblyar.org.